All right, so here we are on Thursday, maybe it's the 28th of February, and we're going over these words. So you might want to go over them because these are words we'll be held responsible for at some point. Hashavat Aveda, returning lost objects. Hayav Lakri is obligated to announce Mitziot Shalo, stuff that his findings. Hefker is stuff that you're abandoning. Nin Ketzad is how. Shinui is like a change. Heichidami, that's a word from yesterday. How is this so? Or show me a situation like, oh, sorry, that's wrong. That's teku. There it is. And Bae, he asks. So what we're going to do today, what we did in class is we actually went over the entire piece of Gemara. And we went around the table and asked people to really explain what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain, and then you're going to have to write a kind of a little bit of like a summary of what each line is doing. So you're going to see there's slide one, there's 5 summaries on slide one, 4 summaries on slide two, 4 summaries on slide three, and 4 summaries on slide 4, and 5 summaries on slide 5. Not all of them need to be so long. You'll kind of see as you go. I'll kind of say, okay, summarize. So it's kind of like you'll do like an page 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, page 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, page 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so here we go. Good. So, and I think this was really helpful for everyone, and I'm gonna show you an example of a Talmud that actually makes this much easier. So, what I tried to do today was to really just translate just the pieces that you would find in the Talmud itself, and we're going to try to make sense of it. Okay, so we'll start right here with the found scattered fruit. So because I highlighted this and I put it in quotes, this is actually something in the Mishnah itself. And the Mishnah says scattered produce is something that I'm allowed to keep it. I don't have to announce that I found it, meaning it's mine, meaning the person who left it scattered has pronounced it hefker. And then the Gemara asks how much, meaning how much stuff is considered scattered. And Rav Yitzchak comes up with a really interesting explanation. He says, I can tell you how much it is. There's a mathematical formula. The amount of stuff in a certain amount of stuff in a certain amount of space. Kav is whatever the volume of 24 eggs is in 4 amot. And it's important to know this is not 24 eggs, the count of 24 eggs, but it probably is if I took a bowl and I cracked 24 eggs and I had like that stuff and I made an omelet out of that. That volume equals a kav. So if it was a kav of not eggs, it would be 24 eggs. But if it was a kav of eggplants, it would be much less. And if it was a kav of raisins, it would be much more, right? Okay. So summarize number 1. Heichidami. So this is a technical term that means like, how is this so? Meaning what I'm going to see coming next in number 3 is going to, in some way, be a challenge or try to be a challenge to what Rav Yitzchak is saying. So Rav Yitzchak is saying is when I see this certain amount in a certain amount of space, I can go ahead and say that's scattered, meaning the owner is not going to come back for it, meaning I get to keep it. But then Heichidami is a challenge. So summarize what Heichidami is doing and what we expect to come next. And here is that challenge in number 3. If in a manner of falling, even greater also, and if in a manner of placing, even less also, no. Meaning no, no, it's not scattered. So what we're saying here is if stuff fell from my hand. So if I'm carrying a bunch of stuff and it fell along the way, even if it's greater than a Kav's amount in 4 amot, it's still not something that I'm the owner care about at all because I kind of let it go, let it fall, whatever, right? And even if it's more than Kaver Ma'amot, I can keep it. So it'll tell me that's considered scattered. And if I place something down, even if it's less than Kav in our Ba'amot, I can, that's something I want back. So don't tell me that's that is considered something that I want back, even though it's less than kaver mud. So basically, I've shown you two cases. One is a case where I can put down even more, and it's actually considered still scattered, and it's not mine. I don't want it anymore. And I can show you a case of less than kaver mud, and I can show you that actually that's stuff that I do want back, and it's all about my intention. So basically, what 3 has done is it has basically said, I can find you two ways that Rav Yitzchak, you are actually not correct in your definition of what equals scattered. I could show you why there's even more than a kav, there's even more than a kav, and that's that's still not something that I'm going to come back for. And I can show you when it's less than a kav, and it's still something I am going to come back for. So, all right. Okay, so then Rav Ukva, okay, so summarize 3. Number 4, Rav Ukva Bar Kama says, Askinan, the gathering on a threshing floor, saying, hey, this definition of Rabbi Yitzchak, okay, it's not always being used, but in this one situation, when we're gathering stuff from a threshing floor, that's a case where actually Kav in our Baal mode is actually a really helpful thing to have, because it tells us when something's considered scattered and something not is not considered scattered. Why is that? Because everyone has a time that they come to this place where they bring their wheat, they separate their good stuff from the bad stuff, they kind of gather it all and go away, and they leave some stuff on the floor. So the question is, the next person that comes, can I take that? Or do I have to go find the person who came before me, check on the list, oh, that person, I'll go to their house, bring them their stuff? Or do I say, nah, they just wanted to leave it here, they didn't really expect to get it back? And this definition of kav and arba mode, of that much stuff in that much space, is really helpful to know if I'm actually allowed to take it or not. So that's number 4. And now and here's going to be this is the number 5. Summarize number 4. Number 5 is an explanation for why Rav Yitzchak's works with on the threshing floor, because here is our someone who's looking at that, and they're saying to themselves, oh, a kav in our ba'amot, to pick the kav of stuff up in 4 amot, that is a lot of that's a real tircha. That's a real burden. It takes a lot of effort. And a person doesn't show effort, is not going to want to show that much effort, and isn't going to return to make that effort. So he's probably saying, oh, that's abandoned, that's hefker, everyone can have it. However, smaller than that, smaller than that, he does take the tircha, and he returns and takes them, and he does not claim it hefker. Now, this was a big discussion in class. The question is, what does it mean smaller than that? So we said, Kab Barabah mode, he's saying that much stuff in that much space, well, all of a sudden, that's a big, I have to get down on my knees and go this way and that way and this way and that way. But smaller than that, meaning not the stuff, but the space is smaller than that, meaning there's more density, more stuff in a smaller space. I'm going to say, hey, actually, it's not going to be that much effort to pick up the stuff because it's kind of all in one smaller space. So I'm not going to declare that hefker. Okay, so Rav Ufa Bar Chama is saying, when we look at a threshing floor, the primary idea is that we're thinking about is the effort that the owner of that stuff is going to take. If the effort's too much, he's going to say that's hefker. If it's not too much, he's not going to say hefker. So summarize number 5. Okay, and now we get Ba'e Rabbi Yirmiyah. Ba'e is a technical term and it's kind of like the word ba'aya. He asks a ba'aya. He raises a ba'aya. He asks. Rabbi Yirmiyah asks a question, and he's going to bring up 4 questions in the next part of the Gemara here, and those 4 questions, and we're going to end those 4 questions with the word teku, meaning, I don't know. We can't figure this out. This is too difficult for us to figure out. So let's figure out why. Okay. So summarize number 1. Number 2. Here's what Rav Yirmiyah asks. Mahu is a technical term that means what is the halacha? What's the legal ruling? Okay. He's going to say a half a kav in 2 amot. So we know about Rav Yitzchak's definition of kav baraba amot, but now we're going to say, what if we turn this all in half? what if we say, in not 4 amot, but now it's 2 amot, and now it's not a kav, 24 eggs, but it's the volume of now 12 eggs. What is the law in this case? So summarize 3. Summarize 2. And now we're up to 3. So here's how they're going to tell us what the answer is here. They're going to say, what was the reason why we decided that kav in Arba Amot was considered scattered, was considered stuff that someone's not going to come back for? We consider that, so this is what the Gemara says, a kav that was scattered in 4 Amot, taima mai. We've seen this as my taima. What's the reason? Here it's taima mai, same thing. What's the reason? And the answer is because of a great tircha. We saw that before. It's causing a lot of effort. Well, now all of a sudden we've taken that amount of space and made it half of that space. And now we've even though we've halved the amount of stuff, the gathering is not going to be such a great tircha anymore because it's in a smaller space. So he's not going to make that hefker, meaning he's going to want. So in this case, a half a kav and 2 amot, he's going to come back for it. But perhaps, okay, and that's so 3. Summarize 3, and here comes 4. We're going to say, wait a second, not so fast. You thought you knew the answer, but not so fast, because perhaps the reason why I called Kav Be'arba Amot scattered wasn't because of tircha at all. It was because of an idea of chashive, which comes from the word chashuv, or important, and we're going to say value. It's because we didn't think it was such an expensive item. Well, if it wasn't expensive when there was 24 volume, certainly when it's 12, it's also not even going to be more expensive. So saying perhaps if our determining factor is not about tircha, but is about whether something is chashiv or valuable, then a half of a kav and 2 amot, since it's not even less value, he's going to make it hefker, and I could pick that up. So we leave this number this question. That's number 2, kav, a half a kav and 2 amot. We leave it with, I don't know what the answer. It could be this, it could be that. And now we move on. Okay, so summarize number 4. So here's our next one. A next question. Okay. Now instead of saying it was half, I'm going to double it. I'm going to say it's not kav baraba amot, but it's 2 kavayim, in not 4 amot, but 8 amot. What is the halacha? And so we ask the question, well, if 1 kav in the area of 4 amot, sorry, I skipped the word 4 here, what's the reason? If the reason is because of a great tircha, now all of a sudden if it's all about effort, now all of a sudden if it's in a space of 8 amot, I have even more of a tircha, and because of that, I'm going to make it hefker. But perhaps, actually, it's not about tircha at all. Perhaps a kav is called scattered in the area of 4 amot is because it is not considered chashive. But once I've changed from 1 kav to 2 kavs, now I've got now it becomes more important because there's a lot of small little unimportant things automatically become important. So maybe he doesn't make it hefker. So again, I'm left with 2 possibilities based upon which variable I prioritize, right? And I don't have an answer. Okay, and now we're moving on to, so summarize 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're moving on. And now all of a sudden we think we've discussed, so we've taken the definition of kav barabamot and called it scatter and say, what if it was less? What if we reduce the ratio by half? And the other one is, what if we increase the ratio by half or something like that, right? So what if we double it? What if we half it, right? And now we're going to say it's not about having it or doubling it. Now we're going to talk about what that stuff is. It's no longer eggs. It's no longer wheat. But now we're going to say it's sesame seeds. Now, again, what you need to know about sesame seeds are that sesame seeds were considered very expensive. So 1 kav of sesame seed in 4 amot. But because it's very small, what else do we know about sesame seeds? To actually gather it and pick it up, it's going to be a lot of tircha, so it's a lot of effort. So it's an interesting case, right? So 1 kav of sesame seed in 4 amot. Well, what was the reason? So summarize that. Number 2, one kav and 4 amot taimamai. What was the reason for saying one kav and 4 amot was scattered? It was because it was not considered important stuff. But okay, so now we're saying that's the reasoning. So summarize that. Number 3 is, but sesame seeds, since they are valuable, they are important, the person is going to always go back and get them. Okay, summarize that. 4, or perhaps, Odioma, if one kav in the area of 4 amot, the reasoning was not because of chashivi, but because of effort. Well, all the more so with sesame seeds, since gathering them is so difficult because they're so small. So he's going to say, forget it. I'm not going to be able to do that at all. To summarize number 4. And here we go for the last one. And there's 5, and we're ending with this great word, tegu. So you're going to see as well right here, the same thing is going to happen. 2 different variables, which are going to leave us with 2 different answers. And at the end of the day, we don't know which is the variable that we should be prioritizing. And by the way, when we were in class and I asked everyone around the table, which variable do you prioritize? Everyone basically prioritized the idea of chashivi, or the worth, the value of something, over the tircha, the effort. Okay, so here we go. So now we're up to if one kav in 4 amot, or if one kav of pomegranate in 4 amot, mahu, right? What is the law if it's no longer an egg and it's no longer something smaller, but now we're going bigger? It's something bigger. And what's the halacha? So you should probably already know why they picked this item and why it is. And so they're going to say, well, and so you can summarize that. Number 2 is if one kav, if the reasoning for time of my, what was the reasoning for that in 4 amot that we called that scattered? We called that scattered because it wasn't chashivi. But if that's the case, then also a kav of dates in 4 amot, or one kav of pomegranates in 4 amot. These aren't such expensive items. They're not as expensive as other items. They're a dime a dozen, so they're also not chashivi. So he makes them hefker. Or perhaps the one, and you can summarize that for, or perhaps one kav in an area of 4 amot is the reason we called that scatter was because it was a great tircha to go back and pick that stuff up. So I'm not going to, and I'm going to declare the hefker. So, but with one kav of dates in 4 amot, or one kav of pomegranates in 4 amot, those are bigger items. It's not going to be such a tircha. Gathering them does not cause a great tircha. He does not make them hefker. And so at the end of this, and we're saying this basically to all the cases we saw, we can't figure it out. Teku, I can't figure it out. Elijah hopefully will figure it out. So summarize all those things, and that's it. The end.